What is personal injury protection insurance? Every time in a case when we're first talking to a client or potential client, the confusion becomes, is my insurance company paying for my medical treatment? That's what's called personal injury protection insurance in Florida. Approximately 50 years ago, the state of Florida decided we're going to put in a system called personal injury protection. And it provides $10,000 of coverage for medical benefits, potentially lost wages, mileage, and any incidentals that you may have, like prescriptions, if you needed a new pillow, something like that, some incidental expenses. It does cover those type of things, but it's mostly for medical treatment. The purpose of it 50 years ago was, hey, while people are fighting who's at fault, you can go get medical treatment, you can have coverage to do that. That was the thinking. But it's probably the most frustrating thing for my clients because they say, why is my insurance company paying for this treatment when I didn't cause this accident? The thing is, in Florida, you're required to use personal injury protection insurance. It's what's called primary coverage. And that's important because you need to use it, you want to use it. Here's the other thing about personal injury protection insurance. A few years ago, and that's now been actually about a decade ago, they changed the law a little bit and you have to treat within 14 days. So you need to go treat in 14 days to have that personal injury protection insurance in place. Why is it important to treat in that time and use personal injury protection insurance? Number one, if you treat during that time, you're required to use it. Number two, your health insurance company, if you have health insurance, is not going to pay a dime until that $10,000 is all used up. We call in the industry exhaustion of benefits. So what happens is when the $10,000 of personal injury protection insurance is gone, then they will send out a letter saying all the PIP benefits are exhausted. Then we, if we're involved as your attorney, we send that to your different providers, and the providers know at that point they can bill the health insurer. And we actually will send it to the health insurer as well, so they know that they should be paying benefits from here on out. Because they're not required to pay benefits until that $10,000 in benefits is gone. The other thing that's important, sometimes clients will say, well, what if I just wait and don't do the 14 days and I don't use personal injury protection insurance? Here's the problem. Personal injury protection is not what's called subrogable. And what that means is your insurance company cannot go back and say, okay, I paid $10,000 to your providers for medical treatment. Now give me the money back if you get a settlement. There's no right for the personal injury protection insurance to get their money back. The difference is in Florida, there is a right for your health insurance company to get that money back. So if your health insurance company pays $10,000, your PIP provider pays $10,000 for the same treatment, you have to pay this health insurer back the $10,000. That's a big problem. Also, if you decide not to use it, and you wait that more than 14 days, because once those 14 days is gone, you can't use it. Basically, you start in a $10,000 hole against the insurance company, the at-fault insurance company, because they get what's called a collateral source set-off at a trial for the fact you should have used the $10,000 of treatment. So it's very important that you use your personal injury protection insurance. Another question that comes up a lot of times is, how does it work? How does it work in theory? So when you go to a provider, what will happen is you will sign what's called an assignment of benefits. That allows your provider to bill the insurance company directly. Here's what will happen. The insurance company will be billed directly by the provider. The provider will get that money paid directly to them. What's interesting with personal injury protection insurance is it only pays 80%. It's a formula. It's 2 times the Medicare rate paid at 80%. But every time you go to the doctor, whether it's a hospital, MRI facility, chiropractor, physical therapist, orthopedist, neurosurgeon, whatever you may go to, you have a 20% balance that's running up every time you go to the doctor. And so personal injury protection insurance is only paying 80%. And that's one of the things that we as attorneys are going to do. The first thing we want to make sure is we get that 20% paid for by the other side. What a lot of people think, especially when they handle it on their own, is, okay, I'll just go to that insurance company every time I go to the doctor. I will tell them, pay that 20%. That's not what's going to happen in any case. The other insurance company is going to make a one-time payment, and that's at a settlement. And when they make that one-time payment, they're going to want a release of any and all claims, past, present, and future. So they're not going to step in and make that payment as you go. So it's very important that you use personal injury protection insurance. Probably one of the bigger questions I get after how it works is, will using personal injury protection insurance raise my rates? No, it should not raise your rates, okay? It's required that you use it. So because it's required that you use it, it's what's called first party coverage. The insurance company by statute is not allowed to raise your rates for using personal injury protection insurance. That's very important. Now, I tell all my clients, if you have anything else that you've had a problem with on your insurance. You have a lot of tickets, you've had a previous accident, you ran into your mailbox and made a claim against your insurance company. The reality is, what I've seen, the few people that have had their rates raised, we find out it's not because of personal injury protection insurance, it's because of the other things they have in their background. What happens if the personal injury protection insurance is not enough? So, and this happens a lot of times when people go to the hospital. The hospital will take a lot of that money. Sometimes they'll take the whole $10,000 just with one hospital visit, and it leaves you with no more personal injury protection insurance. The way it works beyond personal injury protection insurance is you then, if you have health insurance, you then use your health insurance to pay for further treatment. So that would be the next step, and that would be the best step you can take. If you don't have that health insurance, and unfortunately a lot of people don't have health insurance or have big deductibles or can't use their health insurance for whatever reason, the other option is to go to a doctor that will potentially accept what's called a letter of protection. A letter of protection is an agreement between you, the attorney, and the doctor's office to get paid out of any settlement or any award that you may have. And that's why it's sometimes important to have an attorney involved, because if there's not going to be enough coverage under personal injury protection insurance, a lot of doctors are reluctant to give you that treatment if you don't have health insurance unless you have an attorney involved. Why? Because they know the attorney, their obligation legally and ethically is to pay that balance, and we have to pay that balance before we even give any money to the client. So a lot of times the doctor wants an attorney involved to make sure and ensure they're going to get paid, because it's a lot easier to track me down as the attorney if we don't pay something than it is to track someone else down that may leave the state or may not even be around. So that's why it's very important to get an attorney involved in the case, especially if you're going to go beyond that $10,000. Rarely, because there's a lot of discussion out there in the public about treating in 14 days, but sometimes it happens. We have clients that it's the holidays or they don't feel as bad, they're hoping it gets better, and they don't treat in 14 days. The option that they have after the 14 days, they can't use PIP anymore. They have to go either use health insurance or they have to go through the process of using what's called a letter of protection. The letter of protection is an agreement between them, the attorney, and the doctor. And that's why a lot of times if you don't treat in those 14 days, you'll need to get an attorney involved to explain how that's going to work. The downside to doing that is your health insurance is going to have to, if you're using health insurance, you're going to have to be repaid. The biggest downside is the other insurance company that caused the accident, their insured caused the accident, they get the benefit of the fact you should have used PIP benefits. And that becomes a problem because you basically start in a hole when you're looking at a case. So it's very important that you do use that PIP insurance. And sometimes even there's times where you don't think you've received treatment. There's an argument you received treatment at the scene, like you got EMT treatment, something like that. Or you just walked into your primary care physician and got treatment. That's still treatment that can be qualifying you for the 14 days.